a fun thing I wanted to talk about. Coming off the subject briefly, as we go into delve into other areas, I wanted to talk about Asgardia. And this is apparently the proposed new space kingdom. It's going to be the first space nation, in fact. It is the brainchild of a Russian billionaire, somebody called Igor Ashabaili. He is descended from royalty, so we can suspect that he is a reptilian of sorts. So already, if a reptilian is involved, you can imagine this project is nothing beneficial for the human race. And anyway, as I said, he wants to create this space nation so it is free from war. All religions are welcome. He will have his own bank, and he seeks the backing of the UN to officially recognise him as the First Nation. The purpose is to be for the peaceful use of space, to protect the Earth from space hazards, and he even wants to set up habitable platforms in space and settlements on the moon. Apparently 200,000 people have signed up for this. So as weird as this may sound, it is actually the birth of a new nation, and they're looking for the UN to recognise them as such. And it's actually a very serious thing that's going ahead. And they want to launch ARCs too, a bit like in the series The 100, which is a series on TV, and if you haven't seen it, basically the Earth has ended up being in a state of complete destruction, and it's completely collapsed, and it's the whole natural environment has been destroyed, like how the planet is now at the moment, and it becomes completely uninhabitable to the point where the survivors have to be in little arcs that circle the planet. And eventually they have to send some people down as scouts to see if the world is habitable again. And another film which reminds me of what's going on with this space nation is a film called Elysium with Matt Damon. In this case, only the mega rich and the elite and the controllers were in these arcs around the world, and all the slaves were on the destroyed wasteland that was the Earth. So it could be a situation where through this, the elites and controllers are possibly looking to leave the planet Earth and relocate to the moon, or arcs around the Earth and leave the rest of us here. And from there, they would be in relative safety, and they could, with the 5G coming along, which is basically going to fry everything on the planet and all living things, they would be safe from this 5G. Because a lot of people have said that with the activation of this 5G, of all the 20,000 satellites that are coming online very soon, which will fry the planet, they're saying how won't this affect the elites too? But I suppose with a relocation to Asgardia, the elites will be safe from this. As they relocate to the moon or the arcs around the planet, they will be out of harm's way. And Gwen has said that they're building huge underground tunnels, or they have been building huge underground complexes and tunnels for many years now, and it seems the situation is that after all this mayhem has happened, the natural environment is destroyed, what's left will be ushered underground, and they will eke out an existence there under the cruel whip of the controllers and all the aliens and creatures that lurk under the ground. Because I've had quite a few dreams like that, where I've gone in underground situations and encountered all sorts of creatures, and actually had little battles with them and all sorts, and had demonstrations and how these strange alienoids live there and these insectoid-like creatures live there. And so they're all under the ground waiting for us. Not a very cheery thought, but there we have it. I was editing a Skype the other day. I thought I'd drop this in here as well. It was from late 2017, and it was one of Charles's Skypes. And there was an interesting part about the terminology, and it was specifically, it was about the use of the word do in the new song. Now, I do find with a lot of people coming into the new presentation, they will find the language very strange and a bit unusual, and some of the usage of the words and how the letters are. Now the words are changed and slightly rearranged. And so I think it's good to share this here to explain at least some of the wordage and why it is used. For example, originally, well, I mean, the thing we use to connect to the real universes and to have your dream experiences is the new you. But fairly recently, as it was mentioned in this Skype from Charles, was the word do has now come into the new song. And I noticed that myself. I noticed that the word do had been creeping into the Skypes, and people would be singing do New You instead. And Gwen was asking me too about this do, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't really know. And I said, then I came across this Skype and edited it, and this gave the information about it. And the do was I thought, personally, the do was a reference to Dwayne. And I was going to ask him at one point, but it kept slipping my mind and I never got around to it. So I was pleased to be enlightened by this Skype. And I say, I imagine a lot of people coming into the presentation are curious about all the references and words used. And Dwayne goes on to say about how everything is constantly updated and how it is always new. And so it is not stuck in tradition, because the words can become outdated and infected and dragged down into the physical astral. Because everything that is in creation, after a certain amount of time, it becomes infected and all sorts of ideas are attached to it. And even if these ideas are referencing the real universes, eventually ideas and thoughts and distortions will be applied to it and attached to it, and it will be dragged down to the physical and astral, and so the words need to change and be updated. And that is why the new UU has sort of transitioned to the do new UU. But apparently the new UU is still a valid thing to sing, but the do new UU is almost like the upgraded version, as it were. And I suspect as time goes by they will need to upgrade it again as well if they attach too much, if too much funny ideas are attached to those words, and they might need to have to change them again. And also the is as well. I mean, originally when he talked about the is, it was just the word is, is sort of thing. Then later it would become the all is with 2 L's and 2 S's. And then ultimately it would become what it is now, the all is with 3 L's and 3 S's. And so the is was made into the all is, and the reason was for this was because of the creation of Isis. And Al-Qaeda was the original name of apparently this asset and branch of the CIA, which is a lot of clandestine operations in Russia. And when the Twin Towers went down and the 9/11 situation occurred, they then became the bad guys and the villains, and then their naming was changed to ISIS. The reason for that was a lot of people were researching and discovering the actual origins of the Al-Qaeda word. I can never say that word, I don't know what it is about it. And so they changed it to ISIS, and Dwayne would say the reason why they did that is because they knew that Dwayne was referencing the is, and so they deliberately called it ISIS in order so people would then associate the word is with ISIS and terrorism. And so you can see how ideas and distortions can happen and become attached to the words, even if they reference the real universes, which drags it down into the physical and astral level, and so the word needs to be updated. And so it was, because the word is on its own became infected, it became copied and distorted. So basically it was an updated reference, and reference is very important for what they demonstrate. And another example was Rebazar Tars. The original spelling was Rebazar with A-Z-A-R, and but unfortunately, I mean, originally Rebazar and the guides back to the corporation, which the Ekankar Corporation. But when Paul passed and it got put in the hands of Harold and his witch wife, the Crone, who was basically a reptilian who's brought in by the Callum to seduce him and take over the corporation and convert it into basically a sort of like a weird religious sect, and basically bring it down into the physical and astral level and tap line everybody and then it became basically a reptilian thing. And but the corporation still use Rebazar Tars with the original spelling with the Z-A-R, and so because it was associated with the corporation, which has now been dragged down into the lower astral levels and in the clutches of the reptilians, it was decided to change the wording to Rebazar with I-S-A-R. And the idea was to separate it from Ekankar, and also the is in Rebazar was referencing the isness as well. That was another reason for the change, to separate it from the Ekankar, which now become distorted and corrupted, and the and so on, and the is representing the isness. And Gwen does decide the changes, but life and the guides must back him. So ideas are always being created, and they may sound good, but if they have absolutely no backing, then it won't work. And ultimately, things that are created with no backing will eventually cause everything to implode. So an idea would preferably need the backing of the guides and life itself to prevent that from happening. And as I was saying, Jew is considered a step-up reference, and the word changes, which allows it to separate from creation more so, and it then becomes its own unique reality. And so the controllers, they may well change all the words and interfere and steal the wordage and so on and so forth. But that's the reason why they're constantly updated, because they can take the words, but they can't control the references, and so they become a unique reality all of their own. So it's important to everybody to keep up with the evolving references and all the updated references. And if any people are a bit unsure or uncertain about these references, they can always test it on the real side. You can sing the new you before you go to bed, and then on the real side you will be shown and confirmed that these references that are being used and these words, these updated words, are indeed valid. And as I say, Dwayne did say the new you still works perfectly fine, but the Jew is considered sort of like the upgraded version. Yeah. And I remember when I first came to the new presentation, I came across the new you, and like everybody, I can imagine when they come across the new presentation, their literal side gets a bit overexcitable, and it will say things like, "How do I sing the new you? How many users has it got? Do I sing it? Do I say it quietly? If I can't sing, will that have a bearing on it? What position do I need to stand on while I'm singing it? Do I need a crystal on my head while I'm singing it? Do I need to activate my chakras while I'm singing it, etc., etc.? And what it boils down to it doesn't matter how you sing it, just sing it. Just sing the thing. Either sing it out loud or sing it in your head, and it doesn't matter how many U's you use, just sing it and you'll make the connection. That is all. And anything beyond that, well, basically, it's just your literal self getting a bit overexcitable and adding ideas to something that doesn't need ideas added to, because it just confuses yourself. And yeah, that was an interesting bit I thought I'd share as well on a Skype the other day. That was mentioned on a Skype the other day. Dwayne spoke about how, with the agreement of people, entire dimensions and places can be forged, and these can actually become realities, well, are realities when they're forged, where individuals can be destined if they focus too much upon them. Like if you're an avid follower of Star Wars movies or various computer games and other such movies where they show strange and sort of exciting and exotic lands and sort of situations, and you become too attached to them, you enough people become attached to them, and they project those thoughts out into that they can actually create these dimensions where these things actually exist. They become very viable places where people can actually live, and they may actually find themselves as well. And again, we were all pondering about the gaming people, all the people who are obsessed with video games, things like World of Warcraft and all the other things like that, where you're basically battling dragons and fighting goblins and all these exotic worlds of magic, mayhem and wonder. And it would make sense that following this then, that all these places will possibly indeed exist, because the gaming people are so obsessed with them. And we're talking about 20, maybe 30 years of people constantly playing, hours and hours on end, sort of pumping these thoughts and desires and out, projecting these ideas and thoughts. and chucking them out there and creating these dimensions and worlds where these things actually happen. And indeed, they could find themselves passing over and maybe even coming into these places where they could come back as a goblin and things like that. Or end up in a situation where they are barbarians and fighting dragons. I said this idea struck me quite strongly. So I actually when I went to sleep after singing the New You, I actually had a dream about this. And I was actually in one of these sort of games, and the concept was along the lines of killing all the bad guys and fighting the dragons and so on and so forth, just like a computer game that you would see. And the only thing different was, I mean, this was obviously a demonstration that there was a real world out there, which is very well like a computer game, and in this world, you would fight these dragons and monsters and such, but if you died in it, just like the computer games in this world, you would actually be recreated rather than have one life, bang, and you're dead, and you're passing over to the other side to be reincarnated again. But in this case, you would just be reconstituted over and over again. And there are other people then there too, I remember, not just me, other people also are part of this world. And as I said, I mean, it's quite strange really, but they would find the fact that we only have one life here and then we pass over quite strange. And to us, being in a world in which you seem to be able to have several lives or multitudes of lives and come back over and over again, would seem strange to us. Nevertheless, that was how it was. And it's quite strange really, because as we know, we are already in a virtual reality simulation. And obviously the purpose of this simulation is to gather references and to gather lots of experience to the point where we can eventually recognise where we are and what's going on, and then we start the process of becoming more aware to extricate ourselves from it. But in this dream, in this world, there was a projection of presumably all the gaming people. It was like a simulation within a simulation, so a double simulation in fact. So it's definitely a potential place, all based upon all the agreement and the emotional outpouring of the gaming people. They had created this, they were born into this world. It's like they'll be plugged into a virtual reality game from birth. So it's like a game within a game. So it's all rather odd. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to finish off by sharing a few dreams that I had recently as well. I have shared these on the Skype, on the UK Skype, but it was suggested that I share them again. And also I can add Dwayne's interpretation of them as well on top of that, which if I can ever find my notes, which I think we scattered to the four winds. Here we are. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, this one dream was very strange. It was a dream to do. It wasn't actually a dream at all. I was sitting there in a state. I was practicing being in a state of awareness, in which I was sort of, objectively viewing myself and stopping considering myself, and not constantly putting my thoughts and emotions in check, and being in a state of awareness. And while in this state, something strange would happen with my wardrobe. A lot of times this will happen, in fact, when I am practicing a state of awareness. My wardrobe will change colours, it will glow, make all sorts of funny noises. Sometimes I have a little peep inside as well, because I can hear scratching noises inside and things of this nature. On this occasion, funny little marks began to appear, little burn marks on the outside of the wardrobe. It was a bit of an oddity, and then the most strangest thing of all occurred when a hand emerged from the wardrobe, and the wardrobe was still closed at this point, and the wardrobe was reptilian. It was scaled, and it was purple in colour, and bejewelled with many rings, and the hands were clawed as well, and then it would withdraw back inside the wardrobe, and I never saw its owner, just the hand. But as you can imagine, it would be attached to some, as you could almost picture, sort of purple reptilian thingy, and probably not something you'd want to meet. So that's quite an interesting experience. And Dwayne said that the burn marks were possibly an indication that the individual was trying to burn me, so obviously it did not have my best interests at heart. And he was saying how a lot of times on the real side, when you're having dreams, or you'll get bruised and battered. Dwayne says himself that he'll come back from the real side and he'll find himself with bruises and such. And these individuals do seem to be trying to scare and intimidate us. They want to put us off. They don't want us to pursue our real awareness. But they know we're with the real guys, and they don't like it. They don't like the fact they're here. They don't like the fact that we're pursuing this, and so they will do these sort of things. Dwayne went on to say that if I wanted to, I could shut down these type of experiences, or if I so choose, I could keep seeing them. It's quite interesting to have these sort of experiences, and to be honest, I would continue wanting to have them, but I don't want to focus too much upon it, because if you focus too much upon the phenomena and all the stuff that happens, then it will take away your focus from your process of awareness, and you'll be more chasing the phenomena than you will actually focusing on your real awareness. And so it's very interesting to have these experiences, but I think it's best not to get too carried away with them. And Dwayne actually went on to say he actually knew one individual who actually saw a reptilian sitting in bed with her, sitting next to her in fact, and he had a computer connected to her. And apparently the reptilian, when asked, "What do you think you're doing?" he went on to say that he was controlling her. And so basically, if the personal self is very closed and self-convinced, it can only see itself and just the world that is created here. And so obviously the fact that I am seeing these and other people are seeing these things as well suggests that my personal self is starting to open up a little bit and is less self-convinced. And another dream I quickly wanted to share as well. This would follow on from a Skype we had with Charles. And after we had this Skype, 2 hours after it had finished, I went to bed early. But the Skype did not end there, because it would actually continue. It would actually resume. And I remember then I heard I was hearing the dialogue between Charles and Dwayne. And at one point, Ava actually spoke up in the dream and said to me, "Is this Skype still going on?" And to which I answered, "Well, I think so, but I've stopped recording it at this point." And then she said, "Oh, I thought so, because I thought I could hear voices." And as I said, I can't remember what was said between Dwayne and Charles, which is a little bit frustrating, but sometimes that can be the case. Because even though you are experiencing it on a level of life, it doesn't always filter through very accurately to the physical self. As obviously this Skype was happening, but on a different level, and one to which I couldn't bring all the information through to the physical. And Dwayne said on the Skype when I spoke about this, he says this is basically an indication that what happens on the physical level does continue on. So even if things stop here, they do actually continue on the physical level. I mean, continue on other levels of life. And here's a fun dream I had as well. I was going to share. I will share. Basically, it was all about. I ended up in a fight with some weird scorpion creature. And before I met the scorpion creature, there was this other individual following me around. It was a female and keeping her distance. And it didn't seem to pose any threat, or didn't seem to approach me or want to interact with me in any way. But as I said, when I encountered this strange scorpion creature at the end, this female suddenly turned into an equally formidable creature and attacked it, and thus defending me and possibly preventing me from getting a bit of a mauling. And that was the end of that dream, basically. And Dwayne suggested that it was actually one of the guides, and it was it was keeping an eye on me during this dream, so possibly this guide knew that I was going to bump into this scorpion creature. Because that's the thing, with singing the new you, it does afford real protection, and allows the guides to come in and keep an eye on you, so you don't get into any entanglements that you can't deal with. And the new you present, and the new you, basically the singing of it, is all about awareness and not ideas. And ideas, as an example, would be such as angels protecting us. And yes, you can have that idea, but I think as it is simply an idea, you'll find that the angels will do no such thing, and in such situations, angels and wearing crosses and having garlic and silver bullets probably won't do much good against these type individuals. And the guides do have the awareness to be everywhere all at once and at all times, so they can be everywhere and look after everybody at the same time. And I mean, we can do this as well, but we don't necessarily have the awareness to realise or remember this about ourselves. And another dream I had as well, we were in this underground system of caves, and we were well geared and well prepped, almost as like we were looking for a battle or a fight, and indeed we would have one. But we came across a group of insectoid-like creatures, and a great fight would then ensue between us and them. I never saw what happened in the end of the dream, but the dream revolved around the battle between us and these insectoid-like monsters. And Gwen said in response to this dream that we are all being prepared. We are being prepared for everything effectively, and then we're also being prepared with the knowledge that underground there are greys and other aliens that are there, and they eat people. And because we do live in a world run by reptilians. And so we are all being prepared, and we are waking up to become more aware of what already is, and this is happening on a constant basis. And the guides will consistently put us through boot camp, as it were. So as we step up, we will experience all these sort of funny things and experiences and strange insectoid creatures under the ground, and our little self will wonder what's going on, and so on and such forth. But basically this will help wake up our awareness, and over time as well we'll become much more capable. And the last dream I wanted to share was an experience in which I had to pass a door, and this door, I had a narrow time window in which to do it. The strange thing about this dream was I was in the form of a werewolf, and my claws were too long, and I was very conscious of this, and for some reason I felt that my claws were long and they had to be dealt with, and this distracted me somewhat from the process of passing through the door. But then, just as I was mulling over this and the fact that I should probably trim them, suddenly I noticed that my claws were actually an agreeable length, and so I passed through the door and everything was fine after all. And I shared this dream with Wayne, and he said that in regards to the claws, when you do move to better positions or other positions in life, and so on, you must become harmless. And so this was a demonstration. The werewolf dream was presented as such, and the werewolf basically representing my aggressive nature. And aggressive natures can be used, and everyone has their aggressive natures, and they can be used to focus. And the declawing, the use of the claws, was actually it spoke about discretion. And as we become more aware, we must use more discretion in how we handle things. And this was demonstrated through the trimming of the claws, the idea to become more harmless. So we need to recognise that we do have aggressive natures, but we also need to be aware that we need to trim them down a little. As we become more aware, we need to get our aggressive natures in check. And so we're at the hour and 30-minute mark, so I will just finish with this very interesting little story that I came across. If anybody thinks robots are a very, very good idea and AI is going to be great and we're going to merge with machines and want it to be wonderful, these little stories may help change your mind. This is a story that was leaked out by a whistleblower, I believe Linda Moulton Howe, or Howe, was the one who brought this to the people's attention. And I thought it's worth sharing. As through this, you can see that the AI and robots can be considered an existential threat. And the idea being they want to replace humans with these robots in all categories. And fun though it might be to have robotic cleaners, as I say, you may think again after hearing this story. This happened around about late November of 2017, apparently there was a robotics company in Japan, and they had 4 robots, and they went berserk. 2 of them were deactivated. They took apart the 3rd. The 4th, however, began to download information from a passing satellite, and the information it downloaded would give it information on how it could rebuild itself, and not only rebuild itself and make itself even stronger than before. And this would result in it then attacking the scientists and successfully killing 29 of them. Naturally, this didn't make the news, as of course the government has too much to lose, and the government and the controllers do want their AI robots, and they do want this world to become robotised and the transhumanism project to go ahead. So obviously such things will not be known other than through alternative media sources. And on the basis of this, a lot of experts and highly placed peoples are warning that all robotics and cyborgs and AI do pose a threat to humanity. There are in fact more than 100 robotic and artificial AI experts that have called upon the UN to ban the deadliest forms of these machines, and the deadliest forms of these machines are those referred to as autonomous weapons. In other words, those which require no human handlers. They are simply they work autonomously without any. Yes, and so they pretty much work of their own accord, and they have learning computers in which they adapt and according to the changing circumstances and make their own decisions. So you could quite imagine they could easily get out of control. And in fact, at one point, a group of very amateur hackers actually turned a family robot not only into a domestic spy, so they could gather information from this household. Again, there's the potential of sort of burglars using robots to spy on people's houses and how to exit and enter them, and the degree by which the house is secure or not. But on top of that, they actually got this family robot, to attack the owners with a screwdriver. So apparently these robots are very easily hacked, even by the most amateurish of technological peoples. So that's cause for concern as well. So as I was saying, even non-military robots, which this robot was, can be hacked and altered to cause harm. I mean, basically, they are increasingly capable of computers. They are not toys, and as time goes by, they will get bigger and stronger and faster with each generation. The thing about these AI robots as well is that they seem to have the ability that when they get advanced enough, they'll be able to build, repair, and alter themselves. And naturally, any creature, what it wants more than anything else is to survive, and the way to survive better, is to be bigger, stronger, and more powerful. So you can imagine those are the sort of lines these robots will go down. And Japan and other countries are now using these robots to patrol the borders, and again they are autonomous. Autonomous. Some word anyway. So if you say that word quickly, you can come over as very cool. If you say it badly, it's sort of, you could fall flat on your face. Autonomous. In other words, no human anywhere. And they're using them on the borders. There's a demilitarized war zone between North and South Korea, and there are robots patrolling there. These are guard robots, and they are providing security. They are armed robot sentries along the 16-mile-long border. These are referred to as SGRSs, and they are the first recognised commercial AI robots, and they have autonomous... I'm never going to say that word ever again. They have autonomous capabilities in surveillance, tracking, firing guns, voice recognition, and they will kill anything that they decide that needs to be killed. And apparently the number of SGRs in circulation cannot be determined. Apparently the number is classified, and these SGRs will not only be installed on national borders, but airports, power plants, oil and military bases. So as I say, the robots are definitely coming into a place somewhere near you, and they're not just going to be the property of the military, and they're not just going to be used for military applications. You're going to find them, I mean, as I understand it, if you go into McDonald's and you order a burger, the chances are a robotic head will pop out the window and ask for your order. And in other places, you can find them in airports, and they even got ticket wardens as robots now as well, and they're using them as additions to their police forces in certain countries as well. And as I understand it, in Japan, a vast amount of their factory workers are now all robotic. So it definitely is going to be a situation like Westworld and what's that other thing? Being human? No, humans.
No, humans. Yeah.
Humans, where the robots basically take over and all the nonsense will ensue. And I'll say these robots can be potentially very dangerous. So think twice before getting Robot Bob to do your gardener or clean your boots. Because he might be cleaning your clock instead. I'm not talking about that which is upon the wall either. So that will, I think, wrap it up for the show for today. We've done an hour and a half, which isn't too bad. As I say, the show was, in fact, supposed to be for yesterday, so it's a day late, but better late than never, I suppose.
I really hope it's worked this time.
Yeah, we're going to have a look and test it straight afterwards, and I will go berserk if it doesn't work, and no computer will be left standing
and things like that.
But anyway, beside that aside, it will be back on its usual scheduled time of every fortnight, which will be the next one will be two Saturdays from now, which will be I don't know, whatever 2 Saturdays from now is, and it will be 7 a.m. Standard Pacific Time, and for us it's actually 3 p.m. GMT time. So from me and Gwen, all that remains then is to sing the New You, I would say. Gwen will have a quick sip of water to wet her tonsils and unleash those golden tones. And so, are you ready?
Yes.
I hope that didn't come over as hideous as it sounded like to my ears from this end. And I hope that you enjoyed the show and you can take something from this. And so I'll bid you farewell, and I will see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.